you very much for coming. Yes, I'll try to be, I promise to be, I have a lot to talk, but I promise to be precise. In Dutch way, not in Russian way, so 45 minutes, okay. I imagine you have a lot of questions. So, today we have an unusual lecture, simply because in the course of this lecture you will witness at least 2 crimes I will make immediately in this stage. In fact, I made already the first one because I call what's happened in Ukraine a war, not a special operations. And since March of this year, if I call in Russia war, not a special operation, as a journalist I may be in prison for 15 years. That's why Russian journalists, independent Russian journalists, real journalists, they fled Russia in a hurry in February, in March, especially in March, then in April, because it's a real danger. And this is as a call in law, public dissemination of false information about the use of the armed forces of Russian Federation. So, and it's even more complicated for Russian soldiers, because legally they do not participate in any war. So, and if you are killed there, it's a question if your widow or if your family will get any money from that. So, and as Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said on March 10th, we did not attack Ukraine. So what's happened in Russia on February 24th? So the simplest explanation is, we all became Star Wars character, as Chancellor Palpatine became an emperor in one day. So the Putin became a dictator from a president also in one day, in 1 minute. But the only problem that we are not in a movie, but in a real life. So I personally and many Russians, we did not believe that Putin would dare to start a war in Ukraine. Not simply because the war it's a crime against humanity, not just because Russians and Ukrainians we are really are or were brotherly people, but because of historical memory. For World War II, for the Soviet Union started 4 in the morning, June 22nd, 1941, when Hitler troops crossed the border, started to bomb Kiev and other cities. And every citizen of the Soviet Union, every schoolboy, remember that fact. And one of the most popular songs about the war in the Soviet Union was written in December 41 about that. Read carefully the words. It's strange how it's closer to what's happened now. Written December 41.
Июня, ровно в 4 часа Киев бомбили, нам объявили, что началась война. Киев бомбили, нам объявили, что началась война. Война началась на рассвете, чтоб больше народа убить. Спали родители, спали их дети, когда стали Киев бомбить. Врагов шли большие лавины, их не было сил удержать. Как в земли вступили родной Украины, то стали людей убивать. За землю родной батьківщины поднялся украинский народ. На бой уходили все мужчины, сжигая свой дом и завод. На бой уходили все мужчины, сжигая свой дом и завод.
So total human losses of the Soviet Union during the Second World War were up to 29.6 million people. I mean soldiers and civilians. You understand this is total current population of Netherlands and Belgium. And so in absolutely every Soviet family had members who fought and died in the war, which in the USSR and Russia we call Great Patriotic War. So that's why for many Russians it was absolutely incredible to imagine that Putin could start bombing Kiev like fascists did, especially under the pretext of fighting fascism. And in the evening, occasionally, in the evening on February 23rd, I called to my friend in Kiev, an editor in Kiev, and we had a night-long conversation. I told him that war is not possible, etc. And we finished to talk 1 in the morning. 4 hours later, he texted me, "You started to bomb us." Soviet Union was very totalitarian Soviet state was very hierarchic, and hierarchy was everywhere, even in monuments. And I made these photos exactly for you in April, before I leave Moscow. And this is Kremlin, this is Tomb of Unknown Soldier, the Flame, and this is in line the monuments dedicated to Soviet cities which were suffered the most during the Second World War. And this is their hierarchy. Moscow doesn't exist in this pantheon because Moscow is the capital, it's above everything. But here is Leningrad, St. Petersburg, number 2, yes? Number 3 is Kiev, then Minsk, Belarusian capital, and then Volgograd, Stalingrad, Sevastopol, and Odessa. So this is the hierarchy. And this is Vladimir Putin on the Victory Day this year, May 9. So Leningrad. So he pays tribute to cities which were suffered during the Second War. And so on, I don't want to. He put everything, so all flowers to all, including Odessa, and so I'm not as expert in psychology to make any diagnosis, but definitely he lives in completely different realities. In one, he pays tribute to the city which was suffered from fascists, and the same day he bombed Odessa, the 9th, 2 hours later. So, but for me, no doubt, he was misinformed by his, by his advisors, and they told him that Ukrainians hate Zelensky and loved him, and he will capture Kiev in 3 days, and so he started this insane and so crazy war. This is, let's say, joke or not joke, I don't know how to say it, but this is, in fact, this is my second crime today, because now if you compare fascism and communism, Hitler, Germany, and Soviet Union, it's also a crime. I don't know the author of this picture. You know, of course, that yes, this is the symbol of this war. Yeah. So, but why most of Russians still support Putin and his special operation? Of course, first of all, because of censorship. It's very efficient. The laws are really terrible, so that's why activists and journalists fled the country. And this is, it's not only laws, but they act. You see, after 2 wars, 2 months of the war, almost 2,000 Russian websites, different websites, independent media, human rights organizations, even a service for school children were blocked in Russia. Our Russian website, moscowtimes.ru, has also blocked since April 15, but we found an antidote. Our traffic in May even rose slightly, but not twice as in previous months. And this is just to give you an idea, where it's, of course, it's not full overview, but where now some Russian independent media, see Riga, Vilnius, we are in Amsterdam and in Yerevan, so Belgrade, Riga again, Dubai, etc., etc. So, and why people still believe to Putin? Because propaganda works always like this. So this is screenshots made soon after Bucha case was published. And this is Yandex, now state-controlled Russian search. This is Google. The screenshot was made by Medusa, it's a Russian media outlet, on 4th of April. And you see the difference in picture. Terrible. Of course, but propaganda evolves. And now I made this screenshot late May. Of course, you don't see already only nice pictures about Bucha. And let's play a little bit. Are you ready to recognize this information? First video. First is easy. One more time. So who may tell me what's wrong with this video?
Of course.
Okay. You understand, yes? So the soldiers are in danger. They're hiding from the bullet. But cameraman stands opposite open. And this guy, he really surprised. Oh guys, what are you doing here? Making movie. The second is more difficult. It's made by RIA Novosti. This is the second biggest state news channel. News agency. One more time. Oh. So what's wrong here? Do you understand? The cameraman moves ahead of a miner on a minefield. Even if we believe that the cameraman is an Iron Man, it's simply not possible, because if the bombs exploded, the sapper would be killed as well. So he would not, in real life, anyone allowed to move in front of him. So, but you need brain, you need skill, and you need desire to think and to recognize. No, of course, not everyone ready to do it. Another important question: is it shame to be Russian now? State propaganda, Putin's propaganda, really push Russians that everyone now, whole world, are against Russians. We are enemies for Russians, enemies for everyone. And this is a video I'll show you, made by a very popular, really, Russian musician. He started, Sergei Shnurov. He started as underground musician, but then became millionaire, very popular, and now he's really close to the official power. He even became a leader, one of the leaders of pro-Putin Growth Party. And again, please read, it's quite long, 3 minutes, but please read carefully the lyrics.
Блям. Позвонил мне старый друг из-за границы. Он уж 10 лет живет за ней. Алло, говорит, пиздец такой творится. Сказка, и чем дальше, тем страшней. Нас приучат к этой дисциплине и не пощадят ведь никого. Да, русский как еврей теперь в Берлине в 1940-м. У врача одна надпись «Кабинет», русским и собакам хода нет.
В ужасе кричу, подлецы водят по чуть-чуть геноцид. В ужасе кричу, подлецы водят по чуть-чуть геноцид.
Пшел ты нахуй, скажут на работе. Если недоволен, сука, рот закрой. За режим ты или сильно против? Да всем насрать уже, ты просто сорт второй. Да, мозги у нас с одной прошивки. Вышли мы из-под одних лекал. Может, всем повесят нам нашивки, чтобы отличать издалека. У врача одна надпись «Кабинет», русским и собакам входа нет.
В ужасе кричу, подлецы чуть-чуть. Геноцид. В ужасе кричу. Подлецы водят по чуть-чуть. Геноцид.
Европеец, ты как есть, скажи, не молчи. Русский для вас это новый жид. Сжечь бы нас всех в печи.
So terrible. And I don't know, is it a political request or is it just, artistic vision? Again, it was written soon after the war, soon after the invasion. But it's terrible, and this is exactly what Putin needs. To indoctrinate all Russians, the whole world against Russia, not against his regime. So, and this is what we need together to prove opposite. But so, how many Russians are against the war? Definitely there are millions, but unfortunately no one knows the exact answer, simply because as independent media, also all socialist services, they were destroyed, and they became, just service tool for authorities. They may draw any results they think the Kremlin wants. And this is I just put for you two pro-Kremlin social services, and one independent. It was even proclaimed foreign agent, but you see the results more or less the same. But the question, first of all, what is the real percentage of Russians who agree to participate in opinion polls? And the second, how many respondents are telling the truth, but not they think the interior want to hear? And the high support of the war against Ukraine among Russians can be explained by imposed consensus. In fact, it's much weaker. This is just latest research made by a group of scientists led by famous Russian scientist, political scientist Kirill Rogov. And according to their estimates, between 10 and 15% of respondents may be inclined to falsify their preference. But anyway, on the whole, between 50 and 75% who agreed to answer, to participate in exit polls were in favor of the war, but however, the scale of support is highly dependent on the wording and conditions of survey. So, and my theory, and of course, it is also proven already that most of the people, they want to be with majority, and they answer if they think that majority are pro something or contra something. This is, and later I'll give you an opposite example about that. But my personal theory, the fact is Russia is a very rich country, but with very poor population, and the gap between the richest and the poorest is incredible. And the most of people in Russia, they began to live more or less well in only last 20 years. So I think that their rejection of the war and what's happened, it's just mentally psychological reaction, because they afraid to tell themselves that their well life is over, because after the war and because of the war and because of the sanction, they will return to poverty again. But why Russians? Definitely there are millions who are against the war. Why they do not protest against the war? And so in the beginning of the war, my Ukrainian friends asked me, why you are not in the street? What's happened? First of all, so despite Russia has parliament and elections, it is not a democracy and never been a democracy under Putin. So, and the power in Russia is completely independent from will of voters. The power in Russia rests on money from natural resources and from siloviki, from all these Putin troops. And there is no hope that any protest, even mass protest, will change the situation. Putin learned from Belarus that if the situation on the street under control, he will give the order to shot people, to Russian people, as now he kills Ukrainians. So, and then of course, repression and new laws and repression. So I told you about this law against fake news. It came into force on March 4th, and according to lawyer Pavel Chikov, by the end of May, already 53 criminal cases were instituted, 13 persons are arrested, 12 are hopefully escaped Russia. And these are these two laws. One is 15 years, the second is 5 years of prison. This is another, that's for different people. This is against journalists, and this is against normal people. If you violate discrediting the army, you are a victim. You are guilty, and anyone can be considered as discrediting. A phrase from Bible or anti-war quote from Leo Tolstoy, and so if you repeat, you may imprison really, and we have already at least 4 cases of that, but totally already 2,000 cases on this article against discrediting army. But who are on danger? Not only journalists, not only activists. This is Sasha Skochelenko. She's an artist from St. Petersburg. We in the Moscow Times wrote several stories about her. She was arrested and put on jail on April 13 just for replacing supermarket price tags to information about actions of the Russian military in Mariupol. So she faces 10 years in prison. And this is even more incredible case. And this is also from St. Petersburg. This girl, her name is Victoria Petrova, and she was arrested on May 6 after she posted an anti-war video on her page in Russian social network Vkontakte, VK. And the problem that no one knows what in this video, because the network VK, they already deleted the video, and now her lawyer doesn't know what's in this video. And the most incredible that this girl, she has only 250 friends in this network and only 50 followers, not 50 millions, not 50,000, just 50. And she also faced 10 years in prison. So that's incredible. And VK, this Facebook is banned in Russia. You may use it via VPN, but legally it's banned in Russia. And so VK is the most popular chain social network in Russia, but now it's fully controlled by the state. So if a prosecutor asks some information about any person, this company immediately sends all information, and this is what happened. In fact, it's a lesson for the whole of the world that citizen and civil society institutions need to watch closely and resist any attempts authorities to turn digital services into surveillance tools. So here we are in a mostly academic event, and I also want to raise one more important case. This is Bologna process. Now it's almost clear that Russia will cut Bologna process, will ban Bologna process. So it means that Russian students will have no chance to study abroad, and this is what Putin wants, to cut all information what's happened abroad, like in Soviet Union, so we simply cannot afford this. But on the other hand, the Council of European Union on April banned financial and other support to Russian state-owned or state-controlled organization in EU-funded programs, including Erasmus+. And you know that Erasmus was created for exchange, for student exchange and teachers exchange. And the budget was doubled to almost 30 billion euros, and thousands of Russians were participated in this program. And now, for me, it seems absolutely logical to relocate the Russian part of the program budget to direct support of Russian students who want and can study in the European Union. So again, we simply cannot allow Putin to steal generations of current Russian students and school children from civilization. And that's why, and this also need for professors, for teachers as well. So that's why, and I fully support your idea of European university. Definitely, we need this. So because if the new iron wall were to reappear, it would take us another 30 years to educate young Russians and to instill European values to young Russians. Yeah, I still have time. Just a few slides. Remember, I tell you that Russians started to live well in the last 20 years, and this is this rise, and this is deep drop after the collapse of the Soviet Union. And it seems that because of this war and because of these sanctions, the new drop will be even bigger than it was in 92 and 94. The worst prediction made by Institute of International Finance published just a couple of weeks ago that Russia will lose 15% of GDP in 2022. That would be absolute record. And to compare, after the annexation of Crimea, Russian GDP dropped only by 2%, and during the global financial crisis in 2009 by 7.8. And this is how such sanction works. They works really well and efficient, and this is for me one of the most significant picture. This is sales of passenger cars. You see. This is what's happened in April and May, drop almost to 80%. Even during the COVID, when dealerships were closed, they sell more cars. And this is, okay, just an idea, will Russia repeat Venezuela's fate? This is the drop. In 20 years, Maduro and Chavez, they dropped Venezuela GDP by 80%. And the real consistent drop started in 2012, but what is interesting for us, this is 2014. After 2 years of consistent decline of GDP, the immigration from Venezuela started here, and since 2014, almost 20% of Venezuelan population left the country. It's different. There are different estimates, and vary from 4.5 to 6 million people, and the current population of Venezuela is 29. But how large the immigration from Russia could be? This is a survey we made and poll we made for our Russian readers and our Telegram channel in May. 1 week difference. Where do you live now? Of course, it's not pure sociology. But on the other hand, it's, I believe it's very representative because our readers are the most educated, westernized, etc., etc. And you see the difference. 74 now in Russia, next year 48, Europe, etc. But this is not only, the question of humanity, but for me, it can be also, and it is also, pure financial questions. So. In Russia, there are 100,000. It's different sources confirm this. 100,000 households with net assets more than $1 million. And I believe there are at least 2 or 3 million households with net assets between $100,000 or euros and 1 million. And what's happened now? So the Russians are banned to open bank accounts in Europe or everywhere. Russians are banned, all Russians, only because you have passport. Russians are banned to use their international bank cards. So you may bring only $10,000 cash if you immigrate. And what's happened? So this is the number. I take the minimum assets. And so what's happened? And these people, few millions, they will come anyway to Europe and to America again because now we have political immigration, but later this year we will see professional migration, so professors, artists, etc., or people who cannot stay anymore. But real economic immigration will appear next year, next years. And I think there will be something like that, several millions, and then this pure mathematics. Either they come to Europe, to America, without their money, and this 30,000 billions, 300 billions, this is the total assets of Russian central banks, which now are frozen abroad. It's huge amount of money. Or they will work for Putin, for his war, and Europe and America will receive 6 more millions beggars, or these people will come with their money. So this is lose-lose, this is win-win situation. And in fact, nothing to be invented, because all these procedures, how to check and laundering money, etc., banks, they have all these procedures, and so just political decision need, but should not automatically refuse to open accounts simply because a person has a Russian passport. Yes, and so last slide, last idea. So definitely the main goal is to stop. The most important goal is to stop the war. But to stop the war, I'm absolutely sure that that we need West need to split Putin's elite. And at the moment, the West failed to do so. And I think that's a target for diplomacy and maybe for Secret Service, because now the sanctions, what the West, I mean personal sanctions, they imposing on Russian sanctions which are imposing to Russian elite, they are not dividing these people, but even who against Putin, oligarchs, but even Putin elite, but rallying around them. And of course, not everyone in Putin's entourage are negotiable, but majority are, because these people, you must understand, they have no moral, no principles, no ideals. They just care about their personal security and their money stolen from Russian citizens. But so put one of these Putin elite, and the others will run, because they will see other exit, not to be sent to Den Haag and then lifetime sentence with confiscation. And I believe the West should make deals with oligarchs, because again it must be clearly divided. Billionaires who became billionaires only because of friendship with Putin, Kovalchuki, Rottenberg, Timchenko, Sechin, Miller, Kostin, and others who became billionaires because they built their empires. And the more important, they still keeps their empires, their companies in Russia, because they cares about their employees, about their companies, their babies. They are realists, and of course make a deal with them, push them to transfer the rest of their money from Russia, from abroad, and taxate them, high taxation. But again, that's a win-win situation. Otherwise, their money will still be in Russia and work for the war. Finally, conclusions. No one, of course, will oppose this idea. And of course, sanctions must be consistent and tough and tougher. Yes, I scare that what we see now, that some politicians they want to make deals. That would be wrong. So we already saw it in 1938. It would be a great mistake. This type of people, they understand only power or force, and all types of diplomacy and compromises they would accept it as a weakness and the sign that they could continue to do what they want. Yes, sanctions must be smart. Don't turn Putin's enemy to his friends. And of course, to counter the propaganda of Putin regime, the West needs to invest quickly and heavily in the media. And trust me, there are thousands of real Russian journalists who is ready to tell the truth, what's happened in Russia, what's happened around Russia. But definitely we need more help and more investment. Especially we now start everything from scratch. So it seems I'm on time. So thank you very much for your attention.